Well, oops, I just, yeah, 1 second here. All right, welcome everyone. Holding by the Book of Leviticus Chapter 17. Again, want to welcome everyone. Holding by Book of Leviticus Chapter 17. We're in verse 10. Still working our way through the Rechaim Makadosh over here in verse 10. So the Torah says, "V'yish base Israel min agar b'soicham sher yochel kol dam sati fanai ben nefesh ha'ocheles es adam." So Torah says, Torah over here says, and whatever man there may be, right? It's double language, right? Double language over here, right? It's ish ish. And again, sometimes it might be coming to exclude people or include people, right? Which we've seen. Anyone in the house of Israel or the strangers that sojourn among you that eat any blood, I'll set my face against that soul that eat blood, cut them off from among the people. So we spoke about that, right? We spoke about right the idea what it means going to set against the soul, right? And Torahs being spiritually cut off, right? Certain mitzvahs that a person may get spiritually cut off for, meaning that they would have a portion of the world to come. Just read this week, also read this week, Parshas Vayakil, someone doesn't keep Shabbos, right? Get death penalty, and you get spiritually cut off. Spiritually cut off can mean, as we mentioned a number of times, can mean that you die young, your children potentially die young, whatever. The whole discussion what that means. Regardless, the Or Chaim Hakadosh over here says, it brings down from Korban Aaron, right? We mentioned this Korban Aaron before, and the Korban Aaron over here says that that's what we didn't really get far very last week because of this statement. It brings down a brisa, a kinetic source. Right, it's bringing down from the Medrash, I think. Yeah, it's bringing down from the Medrash. And he says, if a person had a child, father's child was non-Jew or a slave, right? But the child, right? We mentioned last week, that's why we didn't get so far, right? We mentioned last week that if the mother's Jewish, right, we go after the mother, right? Meaning that the mother's Jewish, child's Jewish. Now, people say, well, maybe it's a blemish on the soul, okay, but the Gemara says there are different opinions. This child could be considered a mamzer, right? Or what some people translate as a bastard child. It's a child from a union that's not allowed to be a forbidden union, whether it's could be two Jews that are not allowed to be together. Right? If I have two Jews not allowed together, they have a child, right? That child can have the status of a mamzer. Right, and the mamzer means somebody who can't marry. You can only marry someone of that same union, or a convert. Again, their soul was blemished, right? So they're not going to marry, a regular Jew, so to speak, because the convert also, came from, non-Jewish parents. Not their fault, right? It's not their fault, but they're, even after they convert and their soul changes, and however that works, right? Regardless, there are certain limitations. Right, there are certain limitations who they can marry. Right, there's a limitation. Right, there's a limitation who they can marry. So different, having different positions, right? We said position of, what do you call it, power, right? Can't be a king. A convert couldn't be a king, or whole question about being a rabbinical judge or a rabbi in general. But again, there are technical issues here, right? Because they learn out from the verse about kingship, and it says from his people, right? It's going to be from your people, i.e., from the Jewish people. It's talking about a king, right? So if you're not born and bred a Jew, you can't be a king. So the rabbis learn out. Doesn't mean you just can't be a king. What does a king mean? What does a king over here mean? It means power. So it means a position of power, right? So again, it's a technical issue. So people are going to say converts, they're inferior, this, that. There's limitations. There are certain limitations. Everything else, they have established like a Jew. About Tshuva, same thing. About Tshuva also have limitations, right? Someone who grew up as a secular Jew, right, becomes an Orthodox Jew, also have limitations. Also have limitations who they'll marry. There'll be limitations who marry in their family, right? I know somebody, I think I mentioned this before, that they are stringent. They want, for their kids to get married, they want 3 generations of family purity laws practiced. 3 generations. So I mentioned this before. I heard a great rabbi in America say, for others say as well, that doesn't mean anything, right? People can want it and this and that. They won't marry into my family. Okay. They want more purity. Okay. Yeah. Doesn't mean anything, right? Essentially, it doesn't mean anything. Even if someone came from a union, let's say, Jewish person came from a union, the mother never went to the mikveh. Right, so there are some leniencies where Moshe Feinstein holds, one point, she probably went into the ocean, right? Some point, in her life. So maybe that counts. Maybe other things count. Even so, even without that, someone, whenever he came to the Chazon Ish and asked about somebody, about a friend of his, potentially going to date a woman that the parents did not follow family purity laws. So there are repercussions. How the child potentially can come out and different things. I'm not talking physically. I'm talking emotionally, other things. But okay. So they came to Chazon Ish, right? Rav Avram Yishai Karu, it's a blessed memory. And they asked him, Maybe asked him, is this something he should pursue or not? Because obviously this seems to be a blemish. Right? Again, it doesn't matter why the parents didn't practice it. Even if they don't know anything. Grew up as a potato farmer in Idaho. No offense, anyone's a potato farmer grew up in Idaho. Doesn't really matter. They grew up knowing nothing. Okay. Yeah, is a child's fault? No, but there are certain repercussions. In such a case, does it matter? It comes on the Chazon Ish. Chazon Ish, blessed memory, said that if this person's going in the right direction, right? If they're going in the right direction, there's not an issue. Right? That is not going to be an issue over here. Right? So if it's not going to be an issue, what was the idea? So the idea was that if she's going in the right path, she's connecting, to her forefathers and all that, very good. So no problem. No problem. The Chazon Ish did not say, oh, it's going to have baggage, it's going to have this. He said it's not a problem. Not a problem. So, when I think about this, it's kind of, I shouldn't laugh. I just think it is kind of funny, though, that, someone will say, we want 3 generations. We want 3 generations. Yeah. 3 generations, that their, parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, great-grandparents kept no laws. Not the no laws, kept family purity laws. Right? So they kept family purity laws. Right? Can they, if they didn't keep family purity laws, what are they saying? What are they going to say? There'll be an issue. Right? There'll be an issue. They're only married. Right? They're only married people in the same union, right? In other words, if that wasn't the case, right? If that wasn't the case, then what's the status, right? Then you say no. Then you would say, okay, someone hasn't practiced three generations, they will marry into the family. So at the end of the day, some will be stringent for that. There's no source, right? Essentially, there's no source. So if there's no source, no source. That's it. Some people say, no, it's so important. We want that for our family. Okay. So are they gonna marry? Are gonna let their kids marry a Baal Tshuva family? Right? Someone who comes back to Judaism? No. You're gonna have to marry a convert? No. Convert could be, unbelievably righteous. They don't want their choice. Right? Their choice. 100%. 100%. So here the Or Chaim Akadosh says, child's a Jew. Right? Child's a Jew over here. So the Or Chaim says clear, slave, a non-Jew, doesn't get the warning of blood. In other words, doesn't apply to them. Right? Doesn't apply to them. So for non-Jews, right, that's the question here. Right? That's going to be the question here. Someone says that anyone's house is a stranger. Stranger means no eye. It's a non-Jew. It's a non-Jew. It could be a Gertosha. Doesn't mean a convert. Does not mean a convert because they're a Jew. Right? So who's it talking about? So either it's talking about a Noahide or it's talking about a Gertosha. Right? A Gertosha is somebody who lives amongst Jewish people in the land of Israel, that they go against idolatry. Right? Essentially, they keep the Noahide laws. Right? Essentially, they keep the Noahide laws as well. Right? So if it's a non-Jew, right? The question is, again, if you're talking about now, I'll say like this. I mentioned this last week, right? That in Exodus chapter 20, right? I think it's Exodus chapter 20 when it speaks about the Shabbos. When it says about Shabbos, it talks about a convert there, right? Who's supposed to rest, right? Your animals, this, that, in a ger, right? What's the obvious question? Right? What's the obvious question? If you're telling me ger's a convert, well, ger's a Jew. So if a ger's a Jew, why is it mentioned that they have to keep Shabbos? You just told me a Jew has to rest on Shabbos. A convert also has to rest on Shabbos. Now there's a difference of opinion. There's a difference of opinion over there in the commentaries. Who's this ger talking about? Right? Because that's the obvious question. If it's talking about a Jew, very good. Yeah. If it's talking about a Jew, I don't need to mention a convert. Yeah. I don't have to mention a convert because the convert's a Jew. That's the question. But the commentaries go back and forth. They discuss it. Right? Why would I thought it's talking about a convert? Okay. Here's what to be said over there. Right? Could be talking about a Gertosha. Gertosha lives amongst the Jewish people. How about the rest on Shabbos? Right? Seeming would have to rest. Yeah. So the question is, okay, that's first thing. Yeah. And why we know I'd be allowed to eat blood. So I just saw that the Rambam makes clear, he's basically the final authority in the Noahide laws, many ways, that what's a non-Jew commanded on? By the Noahide laws. Non-Jews commanded can't eat Aver Minachai. What does Aver Minachai mean? A limb from a live animal. Right? Cannot eat a limb from a live animal. What about blood? Is he allowed to eat blood? Right? He could. The Rambam states clear. Laws of Kings. Right? Chapter 9, Halacha 10. Gemara over there, Sanhedrin 56b, 59a. States clear. They could. Now, it's interesting. Here, someone brings down that some African tribesmen, they mix blood. They take blood for their livestock, mix it with milk, and they drink it. They drink it for nutrition. I don't know. Go figure. Maybe it's good for nutrition. Don't know. Right? Let's say. They think it's good for nutrition. Let's say. Now, person's got to say, come on. You're taking blood from livestock. You're putting it in milk. That's gross. Right? I think most people probably say that's disgusting. Right? It's come from the Western world. Very good. Right? So you're telling me it's disgusting. Okay. Is it right? Or it's offensive. Okay. Does it violate the mitzvah of the non-Jew? No. Non-Jew could eat it. Right? A non-Jew could eat it. Right? So the question is, no, I'm allowed to eat blood. Yeah. You're allowed to eat blood. Yeah, there's no issue. No issue for them to eat blood. Right? If it's talking about, right? If it's talking about, if you're talking about a Gertosha, right? A stranger, quote unquote, who lives among you, right? And this stranger is a non-Jew, then you're right. Right? Then you're right. They can't, then they're not allowed to eat blood. Right? Then it would be forbidden. If you're talking about a Gertosha who lives amongst the Jewish people, it's a different issue. It's a different issue. But we all, practically speaking, a non-Jew can eat blood. Now, is there moral imperative over here? Like we always say? No. No moral imperative. In other words, would it be good for a non-Jew not to eat it? Not that they're obligated. Not that they're obligated. But is it a good thing for them not to eat it? Remember what we said about being kosher, keeping kosher. People will say a lot of things about, the health, why eating pure animals is healthy, and, all these other things. Remember, Kli Yakar says, Book of Leviticus Chapter 10, right, where the laws of kashrus are, Chapter 10 or Chapter 11, right, over there. He says, remember, right, we had this whole discussion. We had this whole discussion last week also, right, that a non-Jew, you see that non-Jews eat all this stuff, anything that moves, right? Some people, they'll eat a lot of stuff, creepy, crawly things included. You see, it doesn't affect them. Totally doesn't affect them. So if it doesn't affect them, says the Kli Yakar, why would they do it? Because the non-Jew, the no-hide laws is only going to keep what's universal, what benefits them. What there's a pure benefit. Over here, is there any benefit for a non-Jew to eat kosher food? No. There's no benefit. Now, for a Jew, we say that it makes them apathetic if they eat non-kosher. Right? Very hard to bring a secular Jew to Torah and mitzvahs if they eat garbage. Right? If they eat this garbage, that affects their soul. Because what does the Gemara say? It's the tamtam esaleh. Makes the soul apathetic. It dulls, literally, it dulls the soul. Okay. Now, science hasn't proven that. So people say, okay, science hasn't proven it. Well, who says that's the reason? Nobody says that's the reason. That we keep kosher. Could be. It is, some people bring it down. We are what we eat. That's why we don't eat carnivorous animals. Because it affects the Jew. A Jew's got different aspects of the soul the non-Jew doesn't have. So, if that's the case, even though science hasn't proven it, let's say it's true. Let's say, for argument's sake, that's true. Even though science hasn't proven it. Okay. Is a non-Jew obligated? Doesn't affect them. The Kli Yakar says it doesn't affect them. Now, people will say, but it's cleaner. It's this. It's like eating a placebo. Right? It's like taking a placebo. You're going to say it affected me like this and affected me like that. Took away my illness. It was a placebo. It was a sugar pill. Mind over matter. But it was a sugar pill. It didn't do anything. What a person felt, I mentioned the story of a woman, wore a talus, and it wasn't really a talus because it was blemished. One of the sisters is cut off, made it blemished. It wasn't even a talus, like wearing a towel with a bunch of fringes. Okay. What did she feel? I have no idea. Right? It says, bless the memory, she didn't feel the mitzvah. She didn't feel the spirituality of the mitzvah itself. Why not? Why didn't she feel it? Because she didn't do the mitzvah. If you're wearing an oversized towel with fringes, that's not a tallis. You're telling me it looks like a tallis. Yeah. You're telling me it looks like a tallis, looks like a prayer shawl. Very good. But one of the fringes is cut off where it makes it invalid. So if it makes it invalid, I can't even wear it on Shabbos. I can't wear it outside. Yeah. Not a piece of clothing now. It's invalid. So someone will ask me the $1.5 million question because I just upped the ante, and that is, so what did this woman feel? I have no idea. No idea what she felt. But she didn't feel the power of the mitzvah. It's impossible. Whatever she felt, she felt. That's not the power of the mitzvah. Why is it not the power of the mitzvah? Because she didn't do a mitzvah. Because she's wearing an oversized towel with fringes. No mitzvah. Totally no mitzvah. So non-Jew says, I'm eating this, it's going to help me out, this and that. It doesn't do anything. In the process of conversion, different issue. Then you got to start practicing, but technically speaking, you don't have to do it before. You can start eating non-kosher up until the day you convert. It doesn't affect the same way. So if these things are universal and have an effect, then I understand a non-Jew would do it. Comes on the Kli Yakar and says, if it doesn't affect them in any way, right? Why are they going to do it? He said it doesn't make sense logically. Get it? Logical, universal. Doesn't make sense logically. They're not going to do it. But again, people will argue and they'll say, no, it's cleaner, it's better, it's this. We're not going to have the same character traits. We also don't want to be carnivorous, have these character traits because, but you're not Jews. For Jews, that applies. It doesn't apply to non-Jews. So it doesn't apply to non-Jews, says the Kli Yakar, for all those super no-ides out there. Comes along the Kli Yakar, says does not apply. They're never going to do things that don't affect them. That's called the placebo effect. Not going to affect them. What they feel, I can't answer. I can't answer what they feel. They're not feeling the power of the mitzvah. That I can tell you. They're not feeling it. Whatever they're feeling, That's not it. Because they don't have an obligation. Doesn't affect them. Yeah, somebody asked, upon conversion, converts expected to follow the customs and laws of Judaism, 100%. But how are you you're not going to just walk in and start observing right after conversion. You're going to start doing it before. You got to start practicing before, otherwise you make serious mistakes. And a rabbinical court will never convert you. Because before conversion, they're going to start asking you questions. See what you know. If you don't practice the customs and the obligation that you have to do as a Jew when you're going to be a Jew, you'll never do it. It'll be impossible. Be impossible. You're going to do a crash course on the laws of Shabbos? Maybe. Maybe you get all the details right in a very short amount of time. Okay. But how are you going to not make mistakes after conversion? Gemara says one of the reasons non-Jews after conversion. Talking before conversion. Before conversion can also have issues. But the Gemara says, why do non-Jews have such difficulty? A lot of difficulty after conversion because they didn't learn the laws right. They didn't practice them right. So they're held accountable. That's why people are going to say, well, conversion shouldn't take that long. You're right, it shouldn't. A couple years, at least. Right? It should take 5 years? No. It should take 10 years? No. But you have to know the laws. Yeah, people are always in a rush. I hear this all the time. People are in a rush. I'm going to tell you, it's to your disadvantage to be in a rush. I'm not saying it has to take 5 years, doesn't. Right? But you're at a disadvantage here. Because if you want to really push it through, let's say you push it through. Let's say even within a year, 8 months, a year. Let's say a rabbinical court agrees to convert you. Let's say. I find it hard to believe, but there's sometimes extraneous circumstances. Okay, let's say. Let's say that would happen. And you don't know your nose from your elbow in blessings and kashrus or Shabbos. A little bit. right? Give you the benefit of the doubt. You know something. Yeah. But you don't know it like you should. And therefore, what's going to happen? You're going to make mistakes. You'll cook on Shabbos. You'll be over Torah prohibition left and right. So it comes on the Gemara, and Gemara says, why are they going to get tossed on like a rag doll after conversion? Because they didn't know their stuff. So you got to prepare. Right? That's the only way you're going to do it. But someone last week, you know what I mentioned? What do I start with? I was like, you jump in wherever you jump in. I gave different advice, what to learn on a daily basis. But I said, you got to practice. Better make all the mistakes now. Better make all the mistakes now. Than later. But everybody's in a rush. I understand. I'm going to say it's the end of days. Very close to the Messiah coming. They want to finish. Makes sense. Right? They don't want to be left out. Okay? Right? I'm not going to necessarily disagree. But at the same time, pushing it forward when a person's not ready is detrimental. Right? It's going to be detrimental. Right? That I can promise. Why? Very simple. Because you won't know what you're supposed to do. You won't know practically what you're supposed to do in many things. You transgress. And you come to transgress Torah prohibitions. Right? So the Gemara says, why do they get tossed around? Why do converts get tossed around after conversion? And they seem to have it even more difficult because they didn't learn what they were supposed to learn properly. Everyone's in a rush. I get it. I hear it all the time. Why does it have to take so long? I said, learn the laws, live in a community. 6 months, you can be done. Not going to happen, but let's say, do it really intensely. 6 months. I'll be generous. Yeah, we got to know things backwards and forwards. That's the only way. Someone asked last week, practical tests for, rabbinic court. They don't have practical tests. You got to know what to do. They want to see you have a basic working knowledge. They're not expecting you to be, next thing, to Moshe Rabbeinu over here. They're expecting you to know how the hot plate works on Shabbos. What happens in a situation? You made the wrong blessing, over food or something else. Got to go back and make a new blessing. I don't. Drop of milk fell in a pot of meat. Is it nullified? Is it not nullified? And if I put that meat with that milk in another pot, does it change anything? I mean, these things you got to know. Sometimes it happens. I'm not going to mix, milk and meat. You take let's say you're making spaghetti meatballs. Yeah, make it in a meat pot. Very good, right? You have a dairy spoon. Looks exactly like a meat spoon. You start stirring it up, and you forgot it's dairy. So now you get a bunch of questions. You get 3 questions over here. What's the status of the spoon? What's the status of the food? What's the status of the pot? You have to know what a question is, what not a question is, right? But the rabbinical court wants to see a certain level of knowledge. They're not expecting people to know everything. They're not expecting that. They're expecting you to make mistakes, right? The question is what type of mistakes a person makes. I don't know if I flushed that out last week, right? A question that a former student of mine got, and I mentioned this last week. Is there any difference between Shabbos and a festival? Any differences at all? This you have to know. This is pretty basic. Right? On a festival, you're allowed to cook if you have a pre-existing flame. Shabbos, you're only allowed to reheat. You can't cook. Not allowed to cook. On a festival, you're allowed to carry what you need. Right? As long as it's permitted. That's a basic thing. That is the basic thing. Now, they got tongue-tied and whatever, got nervous, didn't answer, but it's an obvious thing. It's definitely an obvious thing. Now, they may not ask you that, but you got to know. Obviously, you got to know. Because when a festival comes, let's say you didn't have enough time to make things, you could cook. Festival's not the same as Shabbos. 100%, you can cook. Right? So, a rabbinical court wants to see you have certain basic knowledge. Is everyone going to know everything? No. They don't expect you to know everything. Right? But certain things I think are pretty basic. And if they see a person doesn't have that knowledge, they're going to think. They're going to think twice before they convert them. They may say, you got to go back and review. Review more the laws of Shabbos, review more whatever person has to review. But for a lot of people, and I think this is a big mistake, big mistake. For a lot of people, they think, I got to do it now. I got to do it quickest way possible. Quickest way possible doesn't help you. Telling you it doesn't help you. It's to your detriment. Does it have to take 5 years? No. You got to get the knowledge. 100%, you have to get the knowledge. But that's exactly why the Gemara says, if you don't do what you're supposed to do, you didn't learn it right, you're going to get trashed after conversion. God's going to have a field day. Because it's not necessarily the person who taught you. If the person taught you didn't know what they were doing, and you followed all these wrong things, which can happen if you go to the wrong person, that I hear that the person teaches them the Bible. Now, if the person teaches them, gives them the knowledge, and they don't reveal, and they don't go through it, and they think they're just going to do it by osmosis, it's not the question of the person who taught them. It's like anything. Person takes a course in, I don't know, whatever it may be. Right? They take it from an expert in that field, very good. But they don't study, they don't work at it. They're going to pass the test? I mean, maybe they will, but in most cases, probably not. Now, is that the fault of the person teaching? No. If they gave over good information, that's not their fault. They gave over the information you need to succeed. I'm making it very, very simple, not where it's convoluted. No, you had to do this, you had to do the other thing, and it doesn't work by everybody in every field and there, whatever. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm making it very simple. Very, very clear cut. You do X, Y, Z, this, that, this is how you do it, and it works, and, and everyone, does it this way, they succeed. Okay. Straightforward. That doesn't mean there aren't a lot of detail. Could be plenty of detail. Right? That's not the issue. It's what you do with it. Are you living it? Are you studying it? Right? On a daily basis? Not so much fun. No one likes to review. People like to learn new things. What more esoteric things? Very good. For a convert, it's got to be practical. These other things you can learn on the side. It's not the most important thing. I get questions all the time from people of things that don't matter. That, for the sake of conversion, they're interesting ideas. Okay. I'll say that. Maybe they're very deep ideas. Okay. And how could you not know this and that? Okay. Yeah. Maybe I'll agree. Basin doesn't care. They want to see what practical knowledge you have. They want to see what practical knowledge you have. They care about the end of days, how you learn the prophet about the end of days and different things. They could care less. It's not important. It's not important for what they want to see. Because the person has to live in this world. The person has to keep what God says. The other stuff, yeah, it's interesting. It can be very esoteric. It can be very inspiring. Learn it, that's a different issue. That's nothing to do with conversion. I told my Rebbe once, I said, potential converts, they need hashkafa, Jewish philosophy, Emunah. He screamed at me. He's like, just teach them the laws. They need to be taught the laws. You right? Didn't disagree, right? But a lot of people want to know what's behind it and why we do it and this and that. Okay, but you can't get sidetracked, right? I mention this all the time because I see it all the time. People get sidetracked. They want to learn more esoteric things, quote unquote, more interesting things. Okay. It'll take you 150,000 years to convert if you do that. God doesn't want you to get sidetracked. It's interesting things. Practically speaking, there's no relevance. There's no relevance. Right? Well, someone will say, but if I don't understand this, when it comes to prayer, how can I pray? So you start doing things even if you're not at the level. Because otherwise you'll never do anything. Like someone, I mentioned this before. Should call the room. I mentioned once before, a few times, this story. Secular Jew gives sweaters to my kids that's 100% wool. So I had to be checked. I had to be checked for Shabbos. Right? I can't wear wool. Jew cannot wear wool and linen together. So I said it's probably not a problem. I said I'll get it checked. Get it checked, and it shouldn't be an issue. So they said, so they asked me, why? Why does that have to be checked? I said, because the Torah says you can't wear wool and linen together. So I said, okay, why? I said, that's a good question. I said, this is one of the things we don't necessarily understand. It's what we call chok. It's a law that we don't necessarily understand, which is probably a lot of the laws of the Torah, probably 80% of the Torah, right? It's not easily understandable. So they said, but if you can't give me a reason, other than like God said it, then why would I do it? And my quick answer was, if I did give you a reason, you'll tell me that doesn't resonate with me. I don't like this. I don't like that. Like the question that people throw out there is, well, if I don't fully understand it or I don't understand it, why would I do it? Yeah, that's a good question. Right? In theory, I would say it's a good question. Why do I say in theory? Because Judaism is about action. There are a lot of things within Judaism we don't fully understand. But we do it. God told us to do it. That's how the rabbis explained to do it. That's what we do. That's what we do. Now, are there things we understand better than others? Yeah. But you have to remember, it's a God-given book. It's a God-given book. Do I expect to understand everything to the fullest? You gotta do the best of your ability. Right? But at the end of the day, you gotta know what to do. You understand how what do you call it? A hot plate works on Shabbos. You say, but I don't understand the other intricacies of Shabbos and what the purpose of Shabbos is. You have to understand that also. But that doesn't matter. Right? That doesn't matter whether you're going to keep Shabbos or not. In other words, if you see the bigger picture, you understand God's the one in charge. Everything else is details. Okay, I got to get the details. You're going to say, but you won't feel it as much if you don't fully understand it. And so you tell me, take you years to understand it, really. I'll give an example. Imagine someone gets on an airplane. Before they get on the airplane, they're like, wait a minute. I want to really understand how the airplane works. I want to understand how, thermodynamics works and how it can be in a tin can and it's up in the air 30,000 feet, this and that. Why does it get blown away? And so what are they going to tell you? They're going to say, here's a book, read the book. Here are a bunch of books on physics. You want to, it can take you years to go through it. Very good. You want to get on the plane? If you don't get on the plane, you don't go. Is anyone going to do that? Nobody. Who's going to sit there and try and figure out thermodynamics? They don't know anything about physics, right? How are they going to sit there and try and wade their way through through thermodynamics about getting on an airplane? At that point, you won't get on an airplane. Same thing. You want to understand the inside of a car. You have no clue how a car works, right? No, the carburetor works and the engine, and something goes wrong, and most people understand cars. No, right? Some more, some less, whatever it is, right? But you really understand how it all works? No. You get in the car and you drive. You got to go somewhere, you drive. Okay, bad weather, maybe you won't. Whatever it is, you're not going to sit there and drive and figure it out. Say, I can only drive when I know all this. You'll never get in a car. You'll never get anywhere. Just stay home the whole time. You ride a bike. You figure out how it works, right? So you ride a bike around. Yeah, but to get to the store, it's like 3 miles. I'm not going to ride a bike 3 miles. Like, what do you do in the winter? I don't know. Get a sled. Get dogs. I don't know. Dogs will take you. Who knows? Wolves, dogs. I don't know. Find some wolves, take you in the sled. You pull the sled. Or walk. You're going to say that's absurd. You're right. That's the same argument. The same argument. We're going to say, until I fully understand. You spend your whole lifetime. You really want to understand the depth of who God is and what he does in this. That's a whole lifetime. A lot of books to read. A lot of information to go through. Very hard to understand the creator of the world, how he works. Moses asked him that. God says, no one can see my face and live. You can only see me from the back. You can only understand things in hindsight. You can understand things face to face. Nobody can. And Moses is the greatest of all people. Almost got to the last level of understanding. So we in our puny minds think, yeah, we should understand everything. We're much more advanced. The more advanced we are, the more technology we have, the stupider we are. You're going to say, what do you mean? We got all this great technology. Right? So, when I was growing up back in the day, right, before you had all, before computers and, and all that, you actually, even before computers, you had typewriters, right? I remember typewriters. You're old enough to remember typewriter. That's how I learned how to type. Right? I took a typing class in high school. Okay. Yeah. You write something. You make a mistake. You'll take this thing, whatever. Go backspace, get rid of it. You spelled wrong or whatever. You're going to think twice before you're doing it. Or when you're writing something. No, I don't like this. Scratch that, rewrite this. You have papers and papers to do it. You have to look up words. You have to have a thesaurus. Today, everything's done for you. Right? You want to think of a better word to say? You have an online thesaurus. You're going to spell check your documents. And they'll say, oh, it's bad grammar. Maybe use this, maybe use that. People are stupid today. They don't know how to think. They don't learn grammar properly. Everything's done for them. So with all the technology in the world, you would think, it would make us smarter. So some people say, yeah, in some ways we are smarter. But scholastically, people writing papers, this and that, now you get it even easier. You got AI. You get AI to do it here. This is what I want to speak about. Write it up. They'll write it better than you. Yeah. That's the truth. That's probably the case. Someone's going to sit there and break their head. Use a thesaurus, use a dictionary, write it on paper. This is much quicker. Okay. Saves a lot of time. True. You erase, you spell check, whatever. It saves a lot of time. 100%. But that wasn't the question. The question is, all this technology doesn't make me smarter. Doesn't make me smarter here. Because the majority work is being done for you. You're not doing it yourself. Because hey, so why do I have to suffer though? Why do I have to go through the difficulty? Why would I go back to 40 years ago? Why would I go back to that? That's ancient. I got everything online. Forget AI. Right? I'll write it myself. Right? But you got everything at your disposal. Does that mean you know how to spell? A lot of people don't know how to spell well. It's done for you. It's already spell checked. Yeah. So you say some people know better, some people not. Okay, whatever it is. Technology does not necessarily make you brighter. Doesn't make you smarter. Makes life easier. Yeah, that I would agree. Totally makes life easier. Okay. But making me smarter? I don't think it makes it smarter. Depends how you use the information. Furthermore, wants to learn Talmud. They translate it in a lot of different languages. They'll translate it in English, French, Spanish. They got, translated in Korean, right? Koreans came to Israel. They think, Jews are much smarter because they're learning Gemara. So, they want to learn how to learn Talmud. But translated Talmud into Korean. Okay. Whatever language you understand, let's say, right? Yeah, most people understand English very good. So you're going through it in English. Does that mean you're learning? Does that mean you know how to learn? How you know how to break down the words and what the sentences are and this and that? Yeah, it's a very good crutch. It's a very good thing. Right? Makes it easier. Makes the learning process faster. True. That is true. I remember back in the day, the only Gemara that they had was translated was Sonsino. And Sonsino, the translation was so bad, they said the Aramaic was easier. Or in the Aramaic was easier. But I remember sitting there, okay, if you know how to break down the words, what the root of the words are. Now, Aramaic and Hebrew are similar, right? Are similar. We had a dictionary. People had a dictionary. Got to look up stuff, what the context is. Yeah, when Art Scroll came out, it was a tremendous thing. Made life a lot easier. A lot easier. But that doesn't mean you know how to learn. And even if you can repeat the words, doesn't mean you understand what's going on. Right? So, there are plenty of things, even when it comes to learning and other things that makes life a lot easier. A lot easier. I would agree. Doesn't make you smarter. Doesn't do that. Just the opposite. Right? Just the opposite. You think, oh, I'm getting it all. I'm taking in all the knowledge. But Art School did all the work. Right? The other things that people learn that, go through a whole compendium of explanations. You didn't have to look up anything. You got everything right there. Get everything right there. Spoon-fed. That's not teaching you how to think. It's sure not teaching you how to think. I'm not saying people are using it, 100% that way. I'm just saying, a person's got to be careful. If you're crunched for time and different things, but you wanted to look things up, in a quicker way, okay. Yeah. But just understand what you're doing. Yeah. When a person thinks, oh, this is the essence of learning, come on. You're being spoon-fed. Being spoon-fed is not learning. You get ideas. No, I'm going to say not. You'll definitely get ideas. And what's going on. To a certain point. It's not learning, though. It's not learning in the same sense. That's why you need someone to teach you. And I see this all the time also. People say certain things. Yeah, and sometimes I scratch my head. I'm very interesting. Where'd you get it from? You got any sources? I'm not saying I know every source, everywhere, this and that. What are things I don't know? Or, when I hear something that's kind of strange, and I know that's what it means. Okay, let's see. Let's see what the commentaries say over here. That's what you think. Okay. But who says you're right? If it's an explanation, Rabbi in the previous generation gave, very good. Yeah. If it's a minority opinion, okay. If it's in the world of theory, and it's not practical, okay. So let's say majority of people think this. It's a minority opinion like that. Okay. Right. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist. That's not, there's no such opinion. But I've heard people say things, they're off the rails. Nobody says such a thing. Right? If nobody says it, it's wrong. Not that I'll find someone later and this and that. You don't know everything. Okay. If someone's learned a lot, they're going to know what's close to what's being said and what's not, because they have other knowledge. I'm not saying everyone has to agree with what you say, but you got to be within certain parameters. Person says something that nobody else says, it's wrong. It's got to be wrong, because someone else would have said it in the previous generation. Somebody would have said it somewhere. I remember I had this question. I was learning something. I had this question. I looked around, this and that. Didn't say anyone who saw it, who said it. So I kept looking and this and that. Finally, I wanted to cover some ground. I went further. Whatever. But, this question still bothered me. I was like, how can someone not bring this up? It was an obvious question. At least I thought it was an obvious question. What happened? What happened? I said, I said to myself, I'm not a world-class expert in these verses, in certain verses. So I said, let me go back again. Because there was a mixture of purity and impurity and laws of sacrifices together. I said, okay, let me go look at the verses. Maybe I missed something, right? Very easily could have missed something. Let's see. Sure enough, when I went to the verses again, it was there, black and white. Now, you still get a mitzvah of learning. That's still called Talmud Torah. That's called learning, but you kind of feel a little bit stupid. You're going to say, oh, I had this great question. No, it wasn't a question. It was an explicit verse in the Torah. That's why people, want to learn Kabbalah. They want to learn other things. They're simple verses. I heard Reb to a blessed memory say, they're simple verses people don't know. They don't know. They don't know what it means. I had something right in front of my face, black and white. Black and white. Good humbling experience. You're building up this whole thing and you think it's a good question and blah, blah, blah. And then you see, forget nobody said it. It's an explicit verse. It's like, you imbecile, it's an explicit verse, okay? That's why it wasn't a question. Right? That's why King Solomon says in Ecclesiastes, Ein davar chadash tachas hashemesh. Nothing new under the sun. We're not coming up with like novelties like the Rambam and and Rashi and others never thought of. We're not coming up with like these new ideas they never thought of. Right? That's why we say there's nothing new under the sun. It's there. Everything's out there. Now, it could be person wants to build up something like this, or like that, got different proofs, okay? Right? But you're not coming along, nobody is coming along saying something that no one else said in history. No other rabbinic scholar said in history. Never going to happen. It's never going to happen. Right? Now, each person has their own style of learning. Some people are very much into learning Jewish law. Some people are into Medrash. Some people are into Jewish history. Some people, are Jewish philosophy, whatever it is. Okay? People have an affinity to different things. Not everyone, the text is what it is. But some people have more of affinity to learning other things. Yeah, in other words, it speaks to them more. Okay. But at the end of the day, certainly for a guy, everything comes from the Gemara. That's where everything comes from. You got the early commentaries, later commentaries, this, that. Okay, but that's where it stems from. Now, some people don't like learning. It's hard. It's true. 100% true. Yeah. We're finishing up, the entire Talmud, the last three tractates are probably some of the hardest that exist. In the laws of, the laws of sacrifices and, etc., or purity and impurity, different things. It's complex. It's things we don't necessarily know anything about, in everyday life. I was going through some missions today. If something going to learn, whatever, probably in the summer, and whatever. I was trying to keep my head wrapped around it. I knew more or less what's going on, but it's not the normal way we think. And it's hard. That's why a lot of people don't get to it, because it's hard. It's just, it's not like, the laws of damages. We have a context, we understand the laws of damages better. It's not like it's, holidays, or things like that, or Shabbos, or whatever, things that we have a connection to. This we have no connection to. I'll give an example. Person that, there's a sanctified object, for the temple. Let's say, I don't know, a cup, a bowl, a spoon. I can't use that for everyday usage. Why? It's called me'ilah. Right? Me'ilah means I take something that's consecrated. I take a bowl or a cup or whatever, and I use it as an ashtray. That you can't do. It's consecrated for the sake of the temple. Yeah, so you can't use it for anything else. Whatever it's used for in the temple, that's what you have to use it for. So the whole tractate talks about this. It talks about different cases. Misuse this, you misuse that. You had intention, didn't have intention. It's complex. It's very much complex. Is it things everyday life that we come in contact with? No, not necessarily. Right? Probably a lot of things. Doesn't mean I don't have to learn it. You have to learn it. Someone who's considered a rabbinical scholar, you got to know everything. Certainly the 24 books of Tanakh, you got to be an expert in. Yeah, that's a day and night job. Certainly for a guy, women, don't have the same obligation. They have to know what they need to know for themselves. Right, Shabbos, kashrus, other things. They have to know. Right, so they have a different function. Okay. My point is that a lot of the stuff is hard. It's very hard, right? It's taxing on the brain, right? And there are people that, they'll say they're not into it as much. It's hard. You're right. You're right. It's hard. If it speaks to us more, it's more practical. It's one thing, right? Right? It's one thing. Otherwise, right? Otherwise, what would we say? You got to put in the effort. You got to put in the effort. It's hard. I don't think there's any question. And it depends what it is. There are things more complex, less complex. But I will tell you, in today's world, in general, people don't want to work. They want everything given to them. Remember, a number of times asking questions where, a rabbi would tell me, either you're on the right track, you're on the wrong track, or like, you're getting there, think. Why do they disagree? What are they arguing? What's the crux of their argument? There's that. Think. Some things are more straightforward, some things less straightforward. Maybe you're missing a piece of information. Could be. But you got to sit there and grapple with it. It doesn't always mean you get the right answer either. Maybe yes, maybe no. You got to work. Right? So even though a lot of things have been made easier, we're in a much lower generation, much more lower level. True. Very, very true. Right? That means we should give up. That means we shouldn't toil. That means we shouldn't struggle. It's like someone doing a crossword puzzle or playing Sudoku or whatever. Right? You get stuck. Right? What do people do? If they're really up for the challenge, they'll take a break, they'll come back to it, think about this, think about that, whatever. If they're lazy, they'll get the answer. Answer's always in the back. Now, why would they do that? Because they don't want to work. You say, but that's only a game. That's only a crossword puzzle. That's only Sudoku. You're right, but you can apply it to life. A lot of things people don't want to work at. I'll give you a good example. Marriage. Divorce rising even in the Orthodox community. Yeah, people don't want to work. It takes effort. I'm not saying there aren't real issues. I'm not saying people shouldn't get divorced. Right? We've spoken about this. But I think there are times where a person didn't have to get divorced. They didn't want to work. It's too hard. Person doesn't want to change. Heard a story of someone married many years. One spouse says to the other, listen, this has been bothering me for years and years. Can't take it anymore. Can't take it anymore. You got to change. This thing you got to change, whatever it is. Right? And this was like, if you don't change, I'm sick of going through this, you're out. Just after many, many years. I don't know the whole story, right? But that was the main crux of it. And what happened? They got divorced. Now, is that what God wants? Divorce is on the books. It's not a Christian thing, right? Divorce is on the books if it has to be. The Gemara says that God sheds tears when someone gets divorced. Now, if they have to get divorced, they have to get divorced. So that's not what God wants. But you take a flower. You take a flower, you don't water it, you don't give it sunlight, it'll die. I mean, it's a very easy experiment to do at home. Right? See, it'll die. 100% it'll die. You have to work. even a person married for many years, you got to work. Hard work. There are a lot of struggles along the way. And what do you do if a person says, I don't want to change? So then the other spouse has to make a decision, right? Either go for therapy and figure out how they can deal with the person in that state, or at least keep their equilibrium, and then see what they're going to do in the future. Because if this is something so detrimental, so what are you going to do? Going to get out. The person's never going to change. Or they don't think they need to change. They think it's all your problem. Okay. How much can a person take? Depends on the person. Are they willing to live under these circumstances or not? I'm saying in a lot of cases, the person's going to say no. It'll depend if it's kids and little kids and this and that, but what are they going to do? Sometimes you have no choice. But if someone refuses to get help, and this is the point, if they refuse to get help, then either the person has to learn how to deal with them in this state, right? At least for themselves, and then figure out down the line, can they live with this or they can't live with it? And how can they live with it? And what's that going to do? Either the person will stay married, they'll figure out how to do it, or they won't. How much time will take in between, I can't answer. Depends on the situation. Right? Sometimes people think they can stick it out, whatever. They give it everything, doesn't go anywhere. So they get out. But it could be they wasted 5 years, 10 years, in that process. Be miserable. No mitzvah to be miserable. But if the person won't change, they refuse to change, then what's the other person supposed to do? Again, I'm just talking in generalities, but it depends what's going on. Depends what the issues are. Some people say, well, you got little kids, you don't want to mess them up, this and that, but they'll be more messed up if they stay together. Kids suffer the most. Right? Some people say, I stuck it out, I was a martyr, this and that. It's complex if you get divorced, true? Well, the person stays together could be 10 times worse also. It depends. It depends on, that would depend on the situation. Yeah, questions here. Let's see, 1 second. Someone asks, let me get back here. So to mention anyone who lives among the Jewish people gives up idolatry, right? So isn't that a Noahide de facto? Yeah. If a Noahide visits Israel and lives by Jews for a period, no, they got to live here. Living here for a period doesn't matter, right? They have to live here permanently. Someone asked my Rebbe that during the beginning of the war, they said if I live in Jerusalem, they say, right, it's brought down that Jerusalem is safer than anywhere else in Israel. So they said if I rent an apartment there and I live there, is it gonna be safer for me? Safer for me and my family. So Rebbe said, but you're not living there. You're only there temporarily. Right? Are you gonna be there 6 months, a year? That's not living there. It's temporary. Right? Someone comes to visit Israel, they're gonna have the status of Ger Toshav? No. Even if they would live here permanently, no status of Ger Toshav today. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. There's no status of Ger Toshav. You don't have Yovin. There's no Jubilee year. They're connected. Without a Jubilee year, there's no Ger Toshav. Period. Yeah. So we're talking about a case where there was a Jubilee year, and you had non-Jews living amongst Jewish people, living, not temporarily. They're there full time. They're living there. Right? They're living there. So someone's going to ask, but what if I visit Israel? It doesn't help. It doesn't help even if they live here permanently. Why not? There's no Jubilee year. If there's no Jubilee year, there's no Ger Toshav. There's no status of a Ger Toshav. So that goes out the window. So if you would tell me there's a status of a Ger Toshav, we said a non-Jew can eat blood, even if they're living. right? A Noahide can certainly eat blood. There's no question. So what's the status of Ger Toshav? Ger Toshav goes against idolatry, right? They don't keep the other Noahide laws. Also probably keep the other Noahide laws. Yeah. Somebody asks for, okay. They can't keep Shabbos and holidays 100%, right? They have to do something, but all right. So when someone converts, that's true. Up until conversion, can a person keep Shabbos if they're in the process of conversion? Yeah. But they have to do something on purpose to break it. They can light a match, start a car, do something to show they're not keeping it like a Jew. Now, what that means as well is that someone's going to say, well, what do I make a lot of mistakes? Right? I don't know what I'm doing anyway. I'll make a lot of mistakes. That doesn't matter. Making mistakes is irrelevant. Over here, it means you got to do something on purpose. You have to show you're doing it on purpose. Not just, no, I made a mistake here, I made a mistake there. Right? Or I made 100 mistakes or 1,000 mistakes. That doesn't matter. The fact is, you got to do something on purpose. You got to do something on purpose to break it. Same thing by holidays, no different. Many takes years because they're not able to move to a community. That's probably the biggest problem. That is probably the single biggest problem. And, besides family, I would say this is a bigger problem, is that for a non-Jew to be able to convert, they have to move. They have to move to a Jewish community, right? That's for sure. They absolutely have to move. That's why it can take longer. Yeah. I'm saying, even if there are stories of people even living in Jewish communities, and it takes them longer to convert. Now, why would it take them longer to convert? So someone told me, by me for a few years, moved to the Jewish community, they would have probably converted 6 months later, had not been for COVID. But there's someone else there taking classes, or supposedly taking classes, even before them. And they still haven't converted. Why haven't they converted? Why don't you think they've converted? Because they're lazy. Not coming to classes, not doing things that they need to do to convert. Right? But the biggest problem, I would agree, 100% agree. The biggest problem for people to convert today is to move to the Jewish community. That's the biggest problem. That by far, I think, is the biggest problem. Right? But, at the end of the day, it's something that has to be done, no matter how much knowledge you have. Having a lot of knowledge without living amongst Jews is not going to help. It's not going to help. It might be a person moves in the Jewish community, it might be easier. They're not going to convert you straight away. Right? It might take a year to convert. They see what level of knowledge and where you've been and what you've done, and in different things. But moving is a crucial thing. Right? Now, that doesn't mean the person can't learn. The person should be able to learn. Because what's the point? Even if you can't move, then you say, well, what's the purpose of me learning? Eventually, you got to move. So if that's the goal of the move, you should learn also. Otherwise, you're wasting time. I would say you're wasting time. Yeah, because once you get this knowledge and you keep reviewing, you go to a Jewish community and you show you know what you're doing and this and that. Again, I'm not going to say rabbinical court is going to convert you straight away. It'll be easier, though. I think it'll be a lot easier. It may take you less time. But he needs also not to say, okay, they're different. There are two main differences. I just wanted to make the point. There are two main differences between Shabbos and the festival, and this is what the rabbinical court wanted to hear. What are the two main differences? You can cook on a festival if you have a pre-existing flame, and you're allowed to carry, even if you don't have an Eruv. Now, again, it doesn't mean you're allowed to carry whatever you want, things that you need, obviously that are permissible, not forbidden. Are there other differences? Sure. But that's all they wanted to hear. They wanted to see the person knew the difference. There are other things going on, true. Muktzah is not the same. Muktzah is more stringent on a festival, right, than on Shabbos in many ways. Yeah, there are other things. There are other things also. But I'm saying those are the two main things right there. Somebody imagines the books like Orthodox of blessings. Rabbi Benjamin first. Are they good for kashas and blessings? Yes. They're very good books. Book I used for blessings was, I think I used this book actually. My first book on kashrus. I think on blessings I used Pinchas Bot Laws of Bless. Just put it up here. That's the book I used. Oops, let me see here. That's blessings. So the book I used on blessings was Laws of Blessings by Rabbi Pinchas Bodner. That's what I used. I think I used the other one by Rabbi First as well on the laws of kashrus. Definitely both good books. Why was the altar to be made of wood and not just coated with gold? Why not a solid gold? I know it's a good question. I don't know, maybe it's a practical reason. Could be. I don't know, it could be a practical reason why. They had a golden altar, though, remember. There was a golden altar, that is true. I don't know, I have to check that. What the difference what exactly the difference all right. I'm not sure. I'll have to check out what the difference is. One second. Yeah, some say interesting that gold woods right, the ark's made out of wood. That's different. The ark is different than the altar. That is true. So old. I don't know. I have to check. I'll have to see what the difference. What exactly? Whatever. What the difference is? Not sure. How much would it be? A half shekel today? Yeah, I saw that brought down. Um, um, that is eight. It's probably um, about 8 grams of silver. Let's say around $5, or could be 17 US dollars. Um, that's probably what it's worth. Let's see if anyone else says differently. I'll say it's worth about $5.50, less than $5.50. Some say it's about $8. Don't want to say it's $10. Some say it's about 11 grams. So give or take, let's say $10, $8. I don't know, maybe some say up as much as 17. But let's say between 8 and 10. That's probably what it's worth. Probably what it's worth today. Someone asked, when we read the offering prayers, do we have to read the Talmud parts, or just 13 principles aloud every time? No. If you're non-Jew, you don't have to read it all, but is it good to read it? Yeah. Definitely good to read. You should read it every day. right? Every day, Rabbi Shmuel's 13 principles should ingrain in us how the Torah was explained, right, through biblical exegesis, different ways, how the rabbis came to understand the Torah the way they did. So that's a pretty crucial thing, I would think, for a Jew to say on a daily basis. Unless it applies to women, right? But certainly for men, because you're giving, testimony, so to speak, to the way they learned, to the way they understood, right? There are 13 different ways of biblical exegesis. So I would think that's pretty crucial. Yeah, the other parts I think are also good to read. I mean, they're in the prayer book for a reason. If you don't have time to say it, if you can say it during the rest of the day, good. If you don't have time to say it, you don't have time to say it. But, sacrifices brought down. And even though we don't give sacrifices today, we should say the sacrifices. We get credit as if we brought sacrifices. Right? So that's also a good thing, even though we didn't do it. So you get credit as if you did it. I would say that's a good thing to say. If a person, a lot of these things, that we mentioned, probably a lot of people don't say. If they crunch for time, they're not going to say it. Right? They won't say it. They'll think it's less important. It might be, in some ways. But I would say, if it's there to be said. Again, I'll give an example, right? I'm going to give one small example when it comes to prayer and what we say and how potent it is, right? I'll give one example. So we always say a person gets synagogue early, right? Earlier, so they can say the prayers with everybody, or maybe they'll start ahead of time, so they say them slower. But you don't want to have to jump around. If you got there late, there are certain things, you have no choice. You want to get to the Shema, you want to get the Shemona Esrei with everybody, silent meditation, whatever you want to call it, right? So that, you'll have to jump around. You have to jump around, right? You have to take out some of the Psalms that you would say, whatever. Certain things you would take out in order to get to that point, in order to catch up. Right now, keep in mind, you got the preliminary service, right? You got blessings over the Torah, right? You got what we call Birchas HaShachar, blessings, right? But morning blessings that you make, and then you have the service itself. We call Psukei D'Zimra, the verses of song, right? So there you get a lot of between Psalms 145, 150. Then you say, then you're going to say Al Jashir Moshe, the song they sang, at the sea. You get the Yishtabach if there's a minyan, right? There are 10 people, you get to that, then you get to the blessings before and after the Shema, etc. And then you get to the Shemona Esrei. Now, if you get there late, you won't be able to say it with everybody, right? You'll be too far behind. So saying the Shema with everybody, very important. Saying the Shemona Esrei with everybody, that's also important, right? There's a concept called Tefillah Imat Tzibor and Tefillah Bit Tzibor. Tefillah Imat Tzibor means prayer I'm saying with the congregation. I'm saying the prayer. I'm saying them with the congregation, but I don't fulfill my obligation of Tefillah Bit Tzibor. In other words, saying it at the same time, right? So two different things, right? I don't want to necessarily go into it, but there are two different ideas. Now, based on that, according to Kabbalah, what we should be doing during this time, or what, practically we should be doing, if you mess up the order, in other words, you cut out certain psalms, right? I'm just gonna say it like this. So if you cut out certain psalms in order to, catch up with everybody, which if you're very late, you'd have an obligation, right? You have an obligation to, right? And then you go back and say it when you're able to. So in this case, Kabbalistically, now who's holding Kabbalistically, it doesn't really matter. I just want to make one point. And the point is, you just messed up spiritual world. You just seriously messed up spiritual world because you took out some, certain psalms, because you needed to catch up and cover ground. You took them out. You took them out in order to catch up, which you had to do, right? Let's say you had to do it. So 100%, according to Kabbalah, which no one's holding by, but let's say there are serious spiritual worlds you messed up by doing it. Now, based on that, you're going to ask me, well, do I have to read these things? What would be the answer? Yeah. Yeah, there's a certain order. The rabbis and the prophets put in certain order. And as Kaufman has said, and I'll say it again, and I'll say it, 100 times or 1,000 times, if the prophets and these great rabbis are telling you what to do, i.e. prophets as well, you listen to them, you keep the order. You don't mess up the order. Because they put it in order for a reason. Yeah, I don't even get into Kabbalistic reasons, but they put it in order for a reason. Now, person's going to say, I got to get to work. I'm crunched for time. Can you skip certain things? Could. Because you got to catch up. You got to be with everybody else. But there's a certain order you should keep. Doesn't apply to women, only applies to men here, right? There's a certain order you got to keep. So now, you're going to ask me the question again? I don't think you're going to ask me the question again. If there's a certain order, you should say it. If you can't say it, you're delayed, whatever, you need to cover ground, okay. Now, someone will say, but that don't mean it's going to take me 3 hours to pray. So I would tell you to do that. Say basic things you need to say, get up to speed, right? And then eventually you'll be able to say what you need to say. Because it's better to say fewer things with more intention than say a lot of things you don't understand anything. Yeah. But again, I want to make clear, the men of the Great Assembly, the prophets that established these prayers, etc., the order is important. We may not feel it. We may not, it doesn't matter. The order is important. So it should be said. If you can't say it, you don't have enough time, okay. Right? But understand, even if a person has to do that, and they're in a rush, and they're half asleep, and this and that, are they thinking for 1 second about spiritual world they messed up? No, they just want to get through it, finish, and get caught up. Somebody asked, okay, is there a source for understanding Rabbi Shmuel's 13 principles? Yeah, there's I heard if you go on TorahAnytime.com, right? I'm going to put it up here. Give them a plug now. If you go to TorahAnytime.com, you click on speakers, you click on Rabbi Breitowitz, who is one of the main rabbis at Or Sameach in Jerusalem. Used to teach law in Washington. Used to be a rabbi of a synagogue in Silver Spring. Big rabbinic scholar. He's got a bunch of classes. You have to go back probably 6 months or so. But he's got a very good elucidation of the 13 principles, of the 13 ways of elucidation. Right. So I would say look him up on TorahAnytime.com. I'll put it up here also on YouTube. Rabbi Breitowitz, 13 ways of elucidation of Torah, right? So I would tell you to go back about 6 months, probably about 6 months. For that. Okay, somebody asks, Is there a remedy against suffering? No. No remedy at all. I would tell you that the Gemara says that a person is going through a hard time, you should look into your actions. Most likely, that'll take 90% of what you've done, and you'll understand. I mean, you won't understand necessarily what corresponds to what. No one can understand, as we said before. No one's going to understand what we're going through, right? As we're going through it, because as Torah says, God says, "You can't see my face and live." Right? So we're never going to understand. So first thing a person has to do is look into their actions. That's probably as far as you have to go. You look into your actions, you're not going to figure out why you did it. Why you're being punished. It could be for any number of things. It could be something happened last week, last month, last year. You're getting paid back now, right? So the Gemara says, let's say you didn't do anything wrong. You figured out some reason, which is impossible today, but let's say you didn't do anything wrong. Yeah. So then why would a person suffer? Why would a person suffer? Gemara says it's suffering, what we call Yisurim Sha'ava. Suffering because God loves you. What do you mean he loves you? If he loves you, it would make you suffer, right? Essentially, it would make you suffer. Right? So why does God do it? Why does God do it? Because he wants you to come squeaky clean in the next world. Commentators ask, why did Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, why do they have trouble conceiving, having children? Right? The commentaries tell us, because God likes the prayers of the righteous. What do you mean he likes the prayers of the righteous? That's why he makes people suffer? Because he likes the prayers of the righteous? What does suffering do? I'm not going into suffering now, but what does suffering do? Doesn't suffering make us pray better? Doesn't suffering make us realize there's no other God but him? He's the one in charge. Eino milvado, as we always say. You got to see the bigger picture. There's only God. Doesn't suffering make us better? In many ways. Can hurt us in many ways also. Yeah. If we look at the bigger picture, isn't suffering good for me? Not that we're looking for it. But why is it good for you? Good for you? Because it takes away sin. It can take away a lot of sin. But most people suffer, which is most people. We don't want to die. We say every day. Speaking about prayer, we say, don't bring me to trials and tribulations. Right? We don't want to suffer. But imagine if we understood what suffering does and how it cleanses us. But it's still hard to go through. Okay. Yeah. So now the question is, let's say a person didn't sin. So this is suffering you're going to get anyway. And it's called suffering that God loves you. God loves you? That's what it's called. Yisurim Sha'ava. Now, is there any possible way to stop suffering in this world? Now, if we're Victor Miller or blessed memory, he never suffered at all. He never had any suffering. Because he looked at the world in a totally different way. He lived what the Chovos Levavos says. Lived it. He had a list of about 100, 150 things, 200 things he was thankful for. Someone sent it to me. Didn't have back pain. Never got cancer. Never broke his hand. Whatever. A lot of things. A lot of things he was thankful for. Now, most people would think, person got injured, broke their hand, they're suffering. Yeah. You gotta be thankful for what you got. You're gonna say, yeah, you broke your hand. Yeah, could have been worse. Yeah. Let's say in this situation, you only broke your hand. You only broke your arm. Could have been, you could have broken your head. You didn't. Someone was biking, going down a hill, couldn't stop. Went off the road, went flying. He could have been seriously injured. I mean, they were laid up for a while. 6 broken vertebrae, broken collarbone. Very uncomfortable for a few months. They could have cracked their head open. Even they're wearing a helmet. It could have always been worse. Got to be thankful for that also. So it's I would say partially it's a mentality issue. Maybe you tell me it's not for this generation. Because for this generation, I'll tell you what the Gemara says. The Gemara says suffering can also be you're looking for a coin in your pocket, you don't find it. It's also suffering. Mary would say money's not everything. Always good to have in your pocket. Right? So we're all going to suffer at some point. Doesn't matter what. No one goes through this life scot-free. Right? One way, says Rabbi Eli Lopian, or blessed memory, is, how could we make it where we have long life? We're not going to die youngish. Let's say. So he says, you should work with the community. You should help out in the community. Right? Should do a lot of chesed. It's one of the things the Gemara says, what's going to save us from Visa the Mashiach? Right? What's going to save us from Chevle Mashiach? The birth pains, literally the Messiah. What's going to save us? What does the Gemara say? Person's going to learn a lot of Torah. And chesed, acts of loving kindness. That'll stop you from the pain. Helping others. Once asked Stein Fisher, Zecher Tzadik Levrach, a blessed memory, or Mr. Yaakov Fisher, and I asked him, they were the Torah giants for the last generation, and I asked him this question: what's going to save us from Chevle Mashiach? He said, the Gemara says, Torah and Chesed, and acts of loving kindness. I said, anything else? He started screaming. It's like, what? You think I know more than the Gemara? You think I know more than the rabbis? That's it. I said, okay. He's like, what kind of question is that? Well, they're doing it to make me feel bad. He's like, what do you think? I know more? I mean, he's one of the Torah giants of the generation. I was like, maybe give me a hint somewhere. I don't know, something else besides that. He said, no, that's what the Gemara says. That's what we have to do. We have to learn a lot of Torah. Right? A tremendous amount of Torah. And we have to do acts of loving kindness. Right? That's what we're going to do. More than that. So Rabbi Lopian says, even if you're liable for a death penalty, right? Even if you're liable for a death penalty, but the community needs you, that'll keep you around in this world. You're helping others. You're doing acts of loving kindness. So the world needs you. God said you deserve the death penalty. You deserve to die. But he's not going to do it until someone else is going to take your place. Or you're not needed anymore. So it says Rav Eli Lopian, that's a good way. Have a long life. Right? So how do you awaken God's kindness? What was the temple destroyed for? Sinas Chinam. Unlawful hatred between man. What do we have to do to bring the Messiah? The opposite. Avas Chinam. Yeah. Loving others. Now, the King David says, Book of Psalms, I love those that love you. I will fight against those that hate you. Doesn't mean you have to love everybody. Yeah. Or we should help others. I'm not talking financial. You can help others, give someone a good word. Help them out in other ways. That's a tremendous protection. When a person does that, gives them themselves, even if they get no reward. Right? So that awakens God's love. Right? That certainly can awaken God's love. But that doesn't mean you're not going to suffer, though. That doesn't mean all suffering's gone, right? Maybe you get minimum suffering. I don't know. Maybe. Sort of mentions what doesn't kill us will make us stronger. Yeah, I see all the time, where's the person from? The school of hard knocks. Yeah, we all suffer at different levels. Some more, some less. Right? The Ramchal says in Derech Hashem, says in the path of the just, we're here to toil. We're here to struggle. Doesn't mean it has to be so hard, no. Some people have it easier, some people have it harder, and people have different things they have to go through. Some people have health issues, some people have livelihood issues, some people have family issues, some have all these issues. And other things combined. And nobody asked for them. But it makes us who we are. 100%, it makes us stronger. There's no question. I can speak very strong about Emunah B'tachon because I've been through a lot. Still going through a lot. Yeah. But I can speak about it in a strong way because God is there. I mentioned this last week. I was somewhere, I'm going to tell the context, right? And this guy I was with said, Orthodox Jews, like, I don't know what you did, I don't know what your merit is. I'm witnessing right now an absolute miracle. This is an absolute open miracle. Because according to nature, this should not be happening. I was like, want to hear other stories in my life? Yeah. I'm not bragging here. It was a miracle, no question. I don't think it's too much of a question. Yeah, but in general, did that mean everything up until that point went smooth? Oh, no. Didn't mean that. But at the end of the day, a person doesn't want to suffer, go through suffering, you have to change your mentality also. You have to know how to look at the world. You have to be able to say, God, you're the one in charge. Right? I just gave over by Book of Leviticus last 2 weeks ago. That really we're alone in the world, right? In the Shachar Ben Nefesh, chapter 3, the gate of self-account, in the end of chapter 3, right? The Book of Leviticus there says, like, we're a guest in this world. Because we're a guest in this world, we can only rely on God. God's the only salvation. We can only rely on Him. So the Book of Leviticus asks the fundamental question: if that's true, and we're really alone in the world, so why do we have connection to man? If man can't do anything for us or against us, it's only God is running the world. So what's our connection to our, to the world, to our fellow human beings, right? Our fellow human beings, unless God wants them to, right? They can either help us with whatever we need, or they can hurt us. Nothing in between. They can either help or hurt us, right? But God says, what the Book of Leviticus brings down. Sorry, the Book of Leviticus says that we're essentially alone in this world with God. Everything else, whatever happens, this person did this, someone else did something else. Okay, they're guilty, let's say, for something bad that they did. God used them as a stick, right? God used them as to get to us. Okay. But essentially, any human being cannot do anything bad or good unless God wants them to. We're not robots, and this goes in the whole thing of free will, right? Essentially, we're not robots, but at the end of the day, nobody can harm or hurt us, right? Or help us. Sorry, I said two the same thing. They can't harm us or help us unless God wants them to. So the Book of Leviticus asks a very fundamental question. He says, based on that, if that's true, then what's our connection to man? What in the world is our connection to man? That doesn't make any sense. Yeah, so he says you're basically alone in this world. Right? So the mantra is, God, you're the one in charge at all times. You can make my life easier or not, but you got to live it. You got to believe it. Right? You'll say no person can harm or benefit me if God doesn't want it. Normally we'll say the other, right? No person can harm us unless God wants it. Unless we deserve it. that we should suffer for whatever reason. But it can't happen if God doesn't allow it to happen. The question is so how we view it. Right? So I was in a certain place, started to have a doubt about something. Like, you're the one in charge. You can will it, you can not will it. Right? That's what I was thinking. Right? I was living this mantra. Nothing can harm me in this world if you don't allow it. Mankind's just, you'll use them for whatever you need them for. If they're meant to help us, they'll help us. If they're not meant to help us, they won't. Yeah. So in this case, they were meant to help me, and I benefited. I definitely benefited. Yeah. Yeah. Now, up until that point, things are a bit dicey, or dodgy, as the English would say. But at the end of the day, God comes through in the clutch. Absolutely comes through in the clutch. Right? So you got to change your mentality. That's not an easy thing to do. It's easier when you keep saying over and over and over again this mantra: God, you're the one in charge. No matter what I do, I put my best foot forward. You're in charge. That's it. It's ain't Mikrain Teva Boilam, right? There's no chance happenings. There's no nature in this world. You're in charge. You 100% are in charge. So then if that's true, you say, well, then a person never suffers. Well, we feel it. When we're in trouble, we feel it for whatever it is, either sickness or health, or financial or family or whatever. We feel it. Question is, should we feel it? How should we take it? This is, obviously much bigger discussion. Somebody imagine it's hard to avoid suffering. Prayers, repentance. Yeah, everyone's going to suffer at some point. You don't get out of it, right? That's true. That is true. But most times, where does suffering come from? From what we do. You can't bribe God over here. Tell a story of the Recheskel Abramsky. Recheskel Abramsky is also, blessed memory, was head of the rabbinical court in London, and then his wife came to live in Jerusalem. So there was a pilot, a religious pilot, that every day went on bombing missions against the Nazis. May they be blown up, may they rot wherever they are. And he had a connection to Rav Cheskel Abramsky. He met him one day, and Rav Abramsky asked him, like, how's he doing? He said, very good, and whatever. He says, how are you doing spiritually? He said, I'm still keeping mitzvahs, and I keep Shabbos. Well, I keep Shabbos, but because of everything I'm going through, every day I'm risking my life. I smoke on Shabbos. So that God's going to give me a free pass for all the suffering, and for all the, not the suffering, but for all the hardship I go through, all the self-sacrifice. God's going to look the other way. Now, is he doing a big mitzvah by bombing the Nazis? Yes. Is he risking his life for the sake of the Jewish people? Yes. Says Rav Cheskel Abramsky, but you don't get a free pass. The mitzvah you do, you're saving lives, potentially saving lives, helping defeat the enemy. Huge mitzvah. No question about it. No question. Desecration of Shabbos? One doesn't offset the other. So remember, whatever we do, there are repercussions. Good repercussions, bad repercussions. Yeah. So we're held responsible. 100% we're held responsible. So it's not suffering, no one's going to get out of. You're never going to get out of, right? The question is, how do you try and minimize it? What's the answer? What's the answer? You do what God wants. At all times. You work on what you see. You work on what you hear, right? You keep your nose clean, so to speak. You work very hard to be the greatest, servant of God you can be. Now, again, is that a guarantee? It's not a guarantee, but if you're doing the right thing, doesn't mean you're not going to have challenges. You would think, if I'm going to the right path, I'm not going to have challenges. No, you're going to have challenges. And some of those challenges are going to be very hard. Yeah. You might also go through suffering, but if you pass the challenge, you grow exponentially. So the two go hand in hand. Essentially, the two go hand in hand. right? But suffering a lot of times is going to be caused by what we do, or what we do, what we think, and we can't even imagine the magnitude of what we're obligated to do, and how God's going to look at it. Because most of us, again, due to the heart, he says, we're only doing not even a tenth of what we're supposed to do. Not even a tenth. I'd probably say it's probably much higher than that. Yeah, or much lower, let's say. Right? So probably, we're doing minimal things that we can do in service to God today, even though we're a very weak generation. Okay. So think about that. Think about that for 1 second. We're doing the minimal we should do. In general. If we were God and we created the world, don't you think it's going to be payback? Yeah, God's going to take into account where you're holding, what generation you're in, different things. He's going to take all that into account. He's not out there to zap us. Obviously, we got to serve him. But, no one will go to sleep tonight because they're going to be afraid. Yeah, we should all be afraid. Because we're going to have to answer for what we did. Person's going to say, what do you mean? I was considered righteous. I was living in Sodom. Yeah? You could have been so much greater. You were just lazy. In Sodom, you were considered righteous. Okay. What about the previous generation would have been seen so righteous? Same status as Noah. Even though we can be proud of ourselves, what we do, not so happy when we sin and we do other things we shouldn't do. Okay. Everything within its perspective. But think for 1 second. Really, I'm not even talking about Kabbalah here. Whatever our obligations are to God are, before you go to sleep, you take a cheshbon nefesh, take a self-accounting. What I did during the day. Did I maximize myself, my time in learning? Did I do acts of loving kindness? Did I guard my tongue? Did I guard my eyes? Did, go through a whole laundry list of things and be honest. Honest. Without destroying yourself in the process. How many people are going to get an A for what they did during the day? Across the board. Nobody. We didn't make blessings the way we should. We didn't pray the way we should. We could have done better. Yeah, we can always second guess. Could have done this, could have done that, could have done the other thing. Yeah. Very true. Very, very true. Problem is, we want to look at ourselves like we're not so bad. Right? You got to be honest without destroying yourself. This is a hard thing. I don't necessarily want to go into it now, but at the end of the day, you want to have a certain level of self-esteem, but think. Is it possible not to be punished today for what we do? Is anyone going to be squeaky clean here? Says King Solomon in Ecclesiastes, no one that ever been in this world hasn't sinned. Some more, some less, whatever it is. But keep in mind, if a person wants to bring out, God's love. So I heard a great rabbi say many years ago, right before Yom Kippur, people looking for this to save them, that to save them. He says, I got a formula that can save you, that everybody can do. You know what it's called? Tshuva. It's called repentance. We're looking for this, we're looking for that. He says you got to take responsibility. So now you're going to ask me, how can I, don't sin. Don't sin. Control your thoughts. Control what you see. Maximize your time to the best of your ability. You'll suffer less, or you should suffer less. But no one gets away scot-free. That's true. Right? That is true. Right? It's either our fault or God's in charge. Now keep in mind, there are things we may suffer for in this world. That has nothing to do with us. That has to do with our soul has to go through, right? In a previous life or whatever. But I'm not even talking about that. I'm not even talking about that. Most things a person goes through today, and even if they suffer, are caused by their own sins. You got to take responsibility. And you're going to say, well, what did I do that was so bad I deserve this? We don't know the measure for measure. We don't know how the measure for measure works necessarily. It could be something a person did 6 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago. And now, you're getting paid back for it. Person can say, well, I didn't do anything wrong. It's my other soul, certain things that were acted upon against our will. Yeah, that we're not in control. Many things we're not in control, but there are many things, that a person would never ask for in 10 lifetimes, that they would never ask for, and it's against their will. Right? Totally against their will. So that you could say it's not because of what they did. Right? It's talking about a sin that's, in a previous life. Right? I'll give an example. I spoke about this last week. Right? As I don't want to harp on it. So I'll just mention one thing. A child gets molested. Yeah, young child, 6 years old, 7 years old, 8, 10, whatever it is, gets molested. Yeah, child didn't ask for it. Child's not punishable. Child didn't do anything wrong. Punishment for a person is either the age of 13 a day, 12 in a day for a girl, or up until the age of 20. So it can't be punishment for the child. It's got to be punishment for the soul. Now, if the child asked for that, they'll probably be ruined for life. No. Child never asked for that. They're acted upon against their will. And if a woman gets abused and gets raped and this and that, she didn't ask for it. Right? All right, so it could be that's what you have to go through for different things. Let's say they didn't do anything to sin, right? They didn't do anything to bring this upon themselves. So it's also what their soul has to go through. See what happened October 7th. Horrific. Yeah. And people say, oh, it's because of what they were doing there. Well, nobody knows. All these people were liable for the death penalty in a horrific way. In a horrific way. It was a decree that was already made. Mentioned this before. It was made by Rosh Hashanah. So it can't be that they caused it. Probably a lot of other things caused it as well. That they didn't help. What they were doing there didn't help. Okay? That's not the reason, though. Babies had to be, decapitated, burnt. Crazy. They're innocent. They're innocent here. So it's whatever their soul had to go through. Okay? Did they sign up for that? No. They didn't sign up for that. There were repercussions for what they did brought them to that. Okay. But it was a decree. It was a decree. Yeah. So we don't know. Right? Essentially, we don't know. But again, if a person's acted upon against their will and they're younger and they're not liable, it's not their fault. Totally not their fault. It's what their soul has to go through. Why? I can't answer. But that's what they have to go through. So when they imagine that we get both reward in this world and Olam Haba. Yeah. Yeah, there are a set of affairs that encounter punishment both in this life. Yeah. There are a lot of things that a person can do that they can be spiritually cut off. The beginning of tractate Croesus. This next tractate I'm going to learn. There are a whole bunch of things at the beginning that talk about being spiritually cut off. Transgressions that you get spiritually cut off. Yeah, a lot. A lot. So, is there a set of sins that punishment both this life and the next? Yeah. Right? Shabbos desecration is one of them. Right? You get killed in this world and you get spiritually cut off later. Other things you just get spiritually cut off. Some things you only die for. Right? You get corporal punishment for. Or are there none that we know of that are punished in both? No. A person can suffer in this world. Right? Desecration of God's name is one. Where you have to suffer in this world, and death atones. Even if you repent, doesn't help. You need to repent. You need to go through Yom Kippur. You need to suffer in this world, and then once you die, you get atonement. So that's the worst of all sins, right? That's desecration of God's name. Whatever that is, and however it applies to different people, it doesn't apply the same, right? Rashi says at the end of Tractate Yuma. He says desecration of God's name is if someone does something bad, a Jew does something bad, and other people learn from their bad actions. That's desecration of God's name. Yeah, it's a technical definition, but it depends on the person and what they've done. So if someone caused someone else to sin, follow the leader, so to speak, they're worse off, much worse off, right? Someone who's Makti Esarabim caused other people to sin, huge problem. Huge problem. Yeah, someone like that, they'll get punished in this world and the next. Right? there's anything left of them. Sort of mentioned about Rabbi Breidowitz, yeah, absolute genius. Yeah, he's great. I think he's very clear. I listen to him religiously. He's whatever, he's very good. I definitely agree. That's why I mentioned it. It's also true that JITs need to choose wisely which grade. I don't want to go into this. I don't want to belittle it, but some people are very big and go into certain graves. Righteous people, you're not praying to them. Can't pray to them. That's idolatry. I hear people say a lot that, yeah, they say non-Jews shouldn't do this. I would say it's a whole bunch of nonsense. I say it's nonsense because what difference does it make? You go to this righteous person, that righteous person, what? This righteous person, interceded for other people and helped them. Why is he not going to intercede for a non-Jew? You say, oh, non-Jews don't have the holiness, he's not going to intercede for them? What if they have merit? Right? You want to tell me there's a difference between righteous people who they'll intercede for or not? I've never been in that world and come back, as my Rebbe would say. Right? It sounds like a bunch of bunk. It sounds like a bunch of bunk to me. I'm told some of them hated non-Jews. And one could drop dead when praying there. Be careful who you listen to. That's all I'm going to say. Be very, very careful who you listen to. This sounds like a bunch of bunk to me. It sounds like, as the English would say, utter rubbish. Who they intercede for and who they don't. Come on. I find that hard to believe. Someone wants to bring me sources and say I'm totally wrong. Fine, right? I find it very hard to believe. Right? It's not something I would worry about. You go to any righteous person, because you're not Jewish, it matters. So they're not going to intercede for you. And that you could be punished there and drop dead on the spot. I tend to doubt it. I would tend to doubt it. Someone here mentions only long life or not dying. That's a very good thing. What do you mean? Long life. Take my Rebbe, he's 98 years old. Yeah. Body's weak. He can't hear so well. Doesn't walk, and I got a problem with his legs or whatever. His mind still razor sharp. Some people it's a curse to live longer. True. Right? Rav Shach said he died at 106. He was 106. At the end of his life, he couldn't do very much. Obviously, God wanted, he says, what's my purpose in the world? Right? He wasn't giving classes. It wasn't, seeming to function the way he wanted to. Right? So I don't know. God probably, kept him alive in order for all the merit of his mitzvahs that he did to guard over the generation, and finally God took him. Yeah. So, the longer a person lives, you tell me the harder it is. True. The harder it is. When you're talking about righteous people, the older they are, it doesn't really matter. Fact is that they're in this world. They're here to protect us, whether they're learning like fire or not. They're being in this world as protection. When a righteous person dies, a lot of protection goes away. So after death, I can tell about all the abuse and suffering. And at the end, after a person dies, everything's going to be made clear. You won't understand it in this world. You will never understand it in this world. Right? Afterwards, God's going to say why this happened, why that happened, why the other thing happened. He's going to open your eyes. You're going to see things clear, not in this world. Right? So suffering does not come for no reason. That's right. I mean, again, the Gemara says not that way. Some suffering can be because God loves you. That's not a reason. I mean, I guess that is a reason. But it's not because you did anything wrong, per se. Right? It's to make you more squeaky clean in the next world. But it's not because you did anything wrong to sin. Right? But obviously for the rest of this world, that's not going to apply. No one's going to say, I'm only suffering because God loves me. You did something wrong, period. Yeah. Even if you want to say, let's say, a person was sexually abused or whatever at a young age, okay, that went on your soul. That your soul took care of, right? You didn't do anything to deserve it. Fine. Most other things, 99%, 0.999% of everything else is because of what you did. It's 100% because of what you did. I should say 100%. It's just about 100% of what you did. Suffering doesn't come for no reason, right? Someone there points out that's true, right? Yeah, let me see other questions here. Let me see here. Soul goes through all this garbage and leaves the body stronger. Yeah, it can destroy people also. There are people that suffer, gone through certain suffering, and never recover. They never recover. Right? We hold that God never puts a person through something that they can't overcome. I know the story of someone, I don't know, many of the details, but basically they became religious. Family put a lot of pressure on them. They went back, I don't know, to live in that same environment after becoming religious a number of years. And they felt they were put in a situation they couldn't handle. For whatever reason, I don't know if they had a rabbi in their life, they couldn't move to the Jewish community. Whatever the case was, their family destroyed this person. The person ended up becoming not religious because of too much pressure. Now, the person claimed I was put in a position I couldn't handle. Yeah, we don't believe that. It might have been a very hard position, right? Might have been a very, very hard position to be put in. Okay. But God obviously thought they could handle it. Yeah. I've been put in a number of positions like, come on, you're this is what I have to go through now. We don't understand. But a lot of things we go through help us grow. They're not there to destroy us. Right? Could it be Hashem wants us to learn something? Sure. Life in general is a test. Sometimes we do better at the test, sometimes we do worse. Right? But again, people go through certain things. You can say, okay, you had all your money stolen, you were thrown all over the world, this and that. But your kids were still intact and whatever. So sometimes you had it easier after the fact, sometimes you had it harder, whatever it may be. But now it gives you the ability, meaning me, to speak about it. Why? Because I went through it. I could empathize with people, this and that, but if you've gone through it, it's a whole different thing. Yeah, would I have signed up for it? Not necessarily. But you know what? It made my emunah b'tachon much stronger. Made my faith and belief in God ironclad. No matter what happens. I'm like, okay, you're the one in charge. This is what you want. Okay. But that formed who I am, changed who I am. There's no question. Been on both sides of the coin. So, yeah, it's hard in either way. But when you realize and you live in this world thinking God's the one in charge, you don't have any worries. You got this bill to pay, something else, and whatever, and you got deadlines. He's the one in charge. You got to put your best foot forward. Yeah, makes you much stronger. It's not there to destroy you. But the problem is that we think about it too much. Well, then you get self-conscious. You get I'll think of the word in a second. A person may have anxiety. They may suffer in other ways from it. But at the end of the day, there are a lot of times I can tell you personal experience. Things got done in a way I wouldn't have thought, and didn't look good, per se. But at the end of the day, a lot of things to worry about for nothing. Because God takes care of business. Might not be the way you thought. In 100 lifetimes, you would have thought that way. Okay. God takes care of business. So a lot of times, we worry and worry and worry. We don't have to worry. Because in the end, he took care of it. Totally took care of it. But it does make us stronger. Definitely does make us stronger. It's not there to break us. That's the point. It's not there to break us, but some people get broken by it. So, it's not what God wants. He's doing it to build you. To make you think in different ways and to be better. That's what he's doing it for. And in many ways, we become better. In other ways, people stress. People have a lot of stress. And they're like, how can I function? And, just take this away, whatever. It makes us stronger in our emunah. Because at the end of the day, who's in charge? He's in charge. He wants it to happen, it'll happen. He doesn't want it to happen. Okay, he wants to squeeze you like the bottom of the toothpaste, he will. Like I said, someone told me last week. Again, this happened to me. He said this is absolutely miraculous. Totally miraculous. Yeah. Looking for a few more miracles here, but like he's in charge. He's in charge. I told someone, listen, get this done, whatever, or go to someone else, blah, blah, blah. And that day came in. Was I expecting it? I was like, you're in charge. You 100% in charge. I had a defeatist attitude, I'll tell you the truth. I was like, okay, not going to happen. You figure out another way to do it. And this thing happened. Right? I was going to work on myself. I'm like, okay, it'll happen one way or the other. How are you going to do it? It's up to you. Well, this guy told me straight to my face, as I'm signing documents, this is a miracle. There's no other way to explain it. Now, would have been, I would have said if it would have happened 2 weeks ago, it would have been one thing after another, okay? Didn't exactly happen that way. Right? So I would tell you my own opinion. What did God want? He wanted pure tefillah, pure prayer. That's what he wanted. You're going to rely on me? I'll take care of business when I want to. Crunch time, deadlines. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. God will take care of it. And that's it. Now, does that make me much stronger spiritually? Oh, yeah. See it with your own eyes. Yeah. Now, you might say, it doesn't look so pretty in bigger scheme of things. Maybe it doesn't. But did it happen? It happened. I can tell you it happened. Saw it with my own eyes. Saw it with my own eyes. So not only makes me stronger, gives me the ability to give that over, because you're going to say, come on, you're talking about someone who lived 250 years ago. It's a different generation. No, living in everybody's generation. Might be older than some people, younger than some people, whatever it is. Yeah. And wherever you think the salvation is going to come from, it's going to come somewhere else. It's going to come somewhere else. It's not going to be where you thought. That's the way it works. That's the way it works. But you got to remember, he's in charge. So you're going to say, but you're getting squeezed like toothpaste, and, person may have anxiety and stress and this and that. You're right. But if you had proper emunah, you're not worried about it. He'll take care of business. He's going to take care of business, and he did. And he's still going to do that because he has to. Because he has to. It's crunch time. 4th quarter. End of the game. No? Let's go. Last thing here. Let's do it. He'll do it when he wants to do it. But he got me to the point where a lot of things never should have happened. Never should have happened. Okay? But guess what? Guess what? If I pray differently, oh yeah. Change my whole mentality. Different ways. In different ways. Because every day I say the same thing. The end, except on Shabbos. Right? The end of Shemona Esrei before he Ratzon and Mikra and Teva Bo'elam. You say it 3 times. There's no chance happenings. Mikra means chance happening, like Amalek. No chance happenings, no Teva. There's no nature. Right? God's in charge. Right? You say that 3 times, you have in mind whatever salvation you need. And then when you get the salvation, you say Nishmas. Nishmas Kochai. Had it twice. Right? Waiting for the knockout blow here, 3rd time. Yeah, it's going to come. One way or another, it's going to come. They can say, how do you know? God takes care of business. You got to believe it. You got to live it. You got to breathe it. These things are not overnight things. Right? We said by Yom Kippur. People looked, I'm going to pray this gravesite, that gravesite, the other gravesite, for repentance, salvation. Repent yourself. That's where it comes from, yourself. Don't look for extraneous things. Yeah, you should give charity. Give a lot of charity. Charity saves from death. Okay, but you got to do it yourself. No one else can do the work for you. I would tell people I can help to a certain point. You got to do the work also. Doesn't happen by yourself. 100% doesn't happen by yourself. Yeah, let me see other questions here. Even I know God's in charge, why do I still feel pain? Because a family member. Yeah, that's a hard thing. See, listen, we do the right thing. We try to do the right thing. We want to bring other people along, especially family members. They say nasty things or whatever. You got to move on. You got to look at these people. They are insane. That's all you have to look about. You have to look at them. They deserve to put in a straight jacket, go straight to Alcatraz, straight to Sing Sing, right? They're mentally challenged. If you look at them like mentally challenged, someone's mentally challenged, got a 25 IQ, are you going to care what they say? Seriously, are you going to care what they say? They got a 25 IQ. Someone with a 25 IQ. Sometimes I see in synagogue, someone's mentally challenged. He'll come, give me a big hug and this and that. Okay. Sometimes it's uncomfortable. But guess what? He's mentally challenged. He's mentally challenged. Am I going to worry about it? No. If someone's got a PhD, pilot higher and deeper, and Papa has dough, and they're much, quote unquote, more intelligent, I'm going to worry about what they say. They're also got 25 IQ. Right? I would say the more you think in that mentality, the less pain it is. Listen, family members get sick, it's sad. You don't want to see someone suffering. Or let's say some, family members get dementia, whatever. It's hard. These are challenges. These are definite challenges. Family presents a lot of challenges. A lot of challenges. And some of them are very hard. I don't think there's any question. Somebody asked, why create a world where it's impossible not to sin? So someone asked the whole time, why'd you write a book about Lashon Hara? You don't allow me to speak. What did the Chofetz Chaim answer? So I allowed you to speak. I'm just telling you how to speak. Right? So no one's been in this world who hasn't sinned. That's true. Does God want you to sin? No. He put you in a world to be challenged. He didn't want robots. He's got that. He's got animals, he's got plants, he's got the solar system, he's got wind, he's got fire, he's got all these things. Don't have free will. So he gave us this ability for free choice. That's why he created us. We're spiritual beings because God breathed in the spirit of life, right? And we're humans. So as humans, he gave us the ability, one way or another, to do the right thing and the wrong thing. Challenges, right? So we're challenged every day. The evil inclination challenges us every day. And that's because of the sin of Adam and Eve. Without going into all that, it's a challenge every single day, right? But what does that challenge come with? Right? What does that challenge come with? The challenge comes with either you do the right thing, right? And it's positive and you overcome it, or God forbid you fail. But when you fail, what happens? When you fail, it makes you who you are. You develop because of your failures. There are plenty of great people out there failed many, many times and eventually got it right. They could have given up. Certainly they could have given up. Very easy in this world to give up. Very, very easy. We don't want challenges. Nobody's interested. God gave us the ability to tap into evil. Not that God is evil. He gave us the ability to tap into evil. And he gave us the ability to do the right thing. So if we do the right thing, we overcome evil. If we do the wrong thing, we debase the body and the soul. So everything's a challenge, right? That's what the Ramchal says. It's all a challenge. So even if he knows you're going to sin and do other things, a lot of times you're not going to sin. A lot of times you're going to work on things, hopefully. Other people that sin, they don't have a clue. Okay, that's their problem. I don't have to worry about that. I have to worry about what I do, right? That's the most important thing. That's the most important thing. Does God expect us to be angels? No. He knows we're not angels. He knows we got bad character traits. He knows we're created with certain DNA, right? He knows all this. So why did he put it out there in the first place? Because you got to be in this world to toil. That's what the Ramchal says. You got to be in this world to struggle. And he gives the ability to either tap into evil or to good. And we're always going up and down. Yeah, so even though he knows you're going to sin, you probably do a lot of sins, he knows you're going to try and do good also. Right? So it gives you that ability. Gives you that ability to tap in. We're not angels, right? There's always repentance. Why don't I know do right that he's able to leave his world with hope? Because God took him early. God didn't want him to see what was going to happen. So even though Hanoch went in the right path, God took him early. Why? To spare him. To spare him what he was going to see. Someone asks, I'm very experienced personally. How Hashem changed him with desperate situation? Yes. 100%. I see it all the time. Yeah. I've seen it most recently, buying this apartment. No question. According to nature, a lot of things shouldn't have happened. Yeah. I got a mortgage. That shouldn't have happened. In many ways. 10 years ago, when I had an opportunity to buy, I could never have gotten a mortgage. Yeah. But certain things happened. I'm just going to tell one part of it. Certain things happened where I had to declare more income, because of something. And because of that, even though that whole thing was a disaster, but nonetheless, I had to declare more money. Because I declared more money, which I had to, because it was considered income, that's how I got the mortgage. Ein mikra v'teva b'olam, right? There's no chance happening. There's no nature. According to that, never should have happened, right? Never should have happened. And then snowball with other things. That's how I got my 10% to put down. Then someone else said, well, they'll help me. Someone else said, they'll help me. That's how it happened. Well, this was the catalyst, a huge thing. A huge thing. No question. No question. But, according to nature, if I would have got a mortgage, that would happen. What's the reason I could get such a high mortgage? Not saying the person should have a high mortgage have to pay a lot every month, right? But what was that put me that put me in the game. That allowed me to get 80% of what I needed. That's huge. That's not a miracle. That's a huge miracle, especially the way it happened. So yeah, a lot of times, I can say different things, being down and out, and then something just turns overnight, right? The Shem can change anything the blink of an eyelash. Many, many things. Many things. Someone asked, will someone be punished when it speaks Lashon Hara against wicked people? No. You can speak about wicked people, right? I wouldn't speak about wicked people just to speak about them. I think you should have a purpose in speaking against them, but in general, no, shouldn't be a problem. When a relative is wicked in Torah's eyes, you got to speak ill of them. Yeah. A Jew, let's say in general, they're not doing Maisa Amcha, they're not doing the actions of your people. They go through Judaism in different ways. Right? They lose the fact that it might be Jewish in certain ways, so I can speak as much as I want about them. Right? Again, I would say you should have a purpose in doing it, but it doesn't mean you have to. If you have a purpose, better. But could I deride them for no reason? Sure. Right? Because they're part of your people. But, someone does great Shabbos, in public. Doesn't matter, they don't know anything. Does great Shabbos in public. They have the status of a non-Jew. Can I speak about them as much as I want? Sure. Yeah. Should I? It's a different issue. It's a different issue. Yeah, if I have a purpose in doing it, good. If I don't have a purpose, I would say no. Just deride them, sake of deriding them. Depends for what. But technically speaking, you pin me down. Can I say anything I want against them? Yes. Right? That you could do. Because they're evil in God's eyes, right? Someone asks, okay, what about drawing the line? Where their murders obviously okay. What about warning about their love of goats? Doesn't matter. Someone's a murderer, someone's doing evil in God's eyes, I can say whatever I want against them. They can have some redeeming qualities, right? Give an example. You're talking about the mafia, the Italian mafia. Yeah, they do horrific things. They kill people, they torture them. Drugs, other things. But when it comes to their mother, their parents, they're honoring their parents is like better than, it's like Asaph. Like Asaph. Could have been the worst person in the world, honoring his parents, honoring his father. Psh. That's what Yaakov was afraid of. How is he ever going to fight against that? He had so much keep it up, hey, honoring his parents, and he was gone for 20 years. Gone for 20 years. But is he evil in God's eyes? Sure. Is the mafia these people evil in God's eyes? Sure. They have redeeming qualities, yeah. So what? So what if they're nice to their mother? So who cares? They're butchers. Yeah, they're loan sharks, they're killers, do other things. They could be very nice, they could have some redeeming qualities. That doesn't matter. They're still evil in God's eyes, period. Right? So, whatever redeeming qualities they have, that doesn't have to stop me speaking against them. Listen, someone mentioned someone like wrote this called an Abikoros. Yeah, they could be a heretic, right? But a heretic can be somebody who doesn't know anything. They're just a nebuch. They're just like, okay, it's sad, but they're still a heretic, right? They could be a heretic. They could be, they could deny God's existence. They could deny, a lot of things that, they would be in serious trouble for. It's true, right? That that is very true. There is a question. We've dealt with this before. There is a question: does someone who's evil, if their parents are evil, they have to honor them? Yeah, right. They have to stand up for them. Do they have to, in that sense, honor them? The answer is there's a difference of opinion. There's an opinion between the Torah and the Rambam whether they really have to honor them. Can I disparage them? Can I make fun of them? No. So I still have to have a certain level of respect, which is a hard thing if they're evil, but still have to have a certain level of respect. Honor? I don't have to honor them. I don't have an obligation to honor them. Yeah. That the Torah can't demand because of all the things they've said and they've done. Right? That they can't. That the Torah can't do. Right? That would be a very hard thing. That would be a very hard thing to do. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, I'm gonna stop here. I do this every Sunday, 9 o'clock Eastern time, 4 o'clock Israel time. Anyone has any questions, find me on Facebook at Michael Chaim Kaufman, Beyond Orthodox Conversion in Judaism, orthodoxconversion.com, and Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism on YouTube. There I got videos on Torah portion of the week, even though I'm very far behind, and Q&As, Book of Leviticus, Ethics of Our Fathers. Or you can send me an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RBBICHAIMCOFFMAN @gmail.com, which I'm good. Beginning of the day, middle of the day, depending where you are, or end of